We're going to get back into our iReady book. I believe that was page, get into page 54. And let's do the I hate when I can't remember words. Let's do the modeled instruction and the guided practice together. So again, we read about Alma's cattle drive and how Dad didn't think she was old enough, but she wanted to prove she was ready. So we're going to fill in the exposition. Well, we've already got the exposition and the conflict together. So we see that the exposition is Alma goes on her first cattle drive, but a terrible storm has made it dangerous. And then Alma struggles to prove herself to her father and keep the animals on the cattle drive safe. But then eventually what happens is a storm comes and they have to cross a river. And we see what happens when they reach the river, that the water is extremely high. And when the cattle go across, one of the calves gets swept up in the current, and Alma charges in to save the calf. So we see that the rising action, I'm going to create a text box. And I'd like you guys to write this in your books on page 54, please. I'm going to make this color blue. The rising action is a cattle or a calf is swept away in the river. So that's the rising action. That's what's happening now that they're going on the cattle drive. And they got to the river. And then, we're going to create a new box for the climax. Because wasn't Alma the hero? Didn't Alma do something? She did. Alma saved the calf from drowning. That's the climax of this story so far. So again, I would like you, children, please write those in your books. Again, these notes will help you when we do the comprehension check the next day. Again, I understand if I'm going too fast. Watch this video on your own and then just pause it and go back. Now, with the guided instruction, we kept talking about Alma and how she stayed there in the stinging rain, her horse breathing hard. She was cold and hungry, but she kept her horse on the edge of the shallow riverbank until each animal had safely passed. When she finally rode ashore, her father waved to get Alma's attention. He paused for just a moment to tip his hat to her before they continued. Alma knew that she had proven herself to be a valuable member of the team. So, before we do the answers, and before we say which sentence best shows the resolution, let's look at the close reading. On page 54, Alma's quest to prove herself is challenged when the weather creates a dangerous situation for the cattle. Find and underline the sentence that shows the end result of Alma's efforts. So we know that Alma's efforts was that we see that she kept her horse on the edge of the riverbank until each animal had safely passed. Well, I'm going to underline, I think, a couple of these. No, not the eraser, you idiot. It's the highlighter. There it is. It's called markup. I see a couple that I like. I got rid of my face. Where'd I go? I think I clicked on the X on myself. Okay. Anyway, sorry. But she kept her horse on the edge of the riverbank until each animal had safely passed. So here's something we could highlight. Each animal had safely passed because she did. No, I don't want the whole thing. I want just this highlighted. So these words. And then finally, we see that Dad paused to tip his hat to her before they continued. This tip of the hat, good job there, little lady, is a way to explain to her that you did all right there, kid. Okay, then which sentence best shows the resolution of the story? Remember, we read these earlier in the other video. So she was cold and hungry, but kept her horse on the edge of the shallow riverbank until each animal had safely passed. Alma stayed there in the stinging rain, her horse breathing hard. When she finally rowed ashore, her father waved to get Alma's attention. She knew she had proven herself to be a valuable member. Well, again, if we look at this, we know the resolution is when we resolve something, we solve something. When we usually solve something, it's at the end. So if we look at this paragraph, we know the last sentence is Alma knew that she had proven herself to be a valuable member of the team. So that's where I'm going to circle D. So I'd like you guys circle D in your book, because that's the resolution of the story, that Alma knew she could be a valuable member of the team. And then it says, explain how you could tell which choice was the resolution of the story. Well, I just kind of said that. Sometimes I really should shut up before I give you the whole answer. But let's make a text box for that. Say, B is the answer because it showed that Alma could be that her dad could trust her, that she will probably go on cattle drives again in the future. There we go. So again, I'd like you guys to write that in your book as well. Again, obviously, if I'm going too fast, on your time, synchronous time, go back and do this. Again, these ideas, what we're doing together, will help you with the assignment we're going to do the next day. We're not going to do the with a partner, but we are going to do the guided practice. Remember, we read this story about James and Jamal getting lost in a museum, and somebody did some fun voices. So, again, if we look at close reading, how is James and Jamal's problem solved? Circle the episode at the end of the play that resolves the conflict. Well, we probably need to first ask ourselves, what is the conflict? And again, me not being able to shut up, I kind of told you the conflict earlier, is that James and Jamal got separated from their class in the museum. So how was the conflict resolved? If we see right here at 14, we see the distressed teacher ran hurriedly onto the stage, because this was a play, like they were acting this happened. So I'm going to create a drawing, and I'm going to make this green. Well, let's make it purple, because it's like the end of the rainbow. Because it's Violet Roy G. Biv. We're going to circle this number right here. You know, we've been searching for you everywhere. That's how the conflict gets resolved. And then it says, underline the sentence that illustrates the play's rising action, climax, and falling action. Well, let's do that. Let's go back and start with the conflict first. We see here at 6, we've lost our class. They must have kept going. That's the conflict of the story. So underline that and put CF for conflict if you don't have different colors, because that's the conflict of the story. They got lost. Well, the rising action. Again, it's got to be right here between 6 and 14. What's the rising action? Again, if we underline the sentence of the play. Again, we keep reading, well, we must have to find the mummies, right? Yeah, but we have a ton of territory to cover. The boys begin walking as they pass the T-Rex. A tremendous roar, goes out at them. And all that good stuff. And if we know between 6 and 14, we have the conflict, and here we have the climax. Everything else is the rising action. So instead of underlining all the sentences, I'm going to do orange. I'm just going to go all these sentences right here from 7 to 13. And I'm going to call these the rising action. Because again, everything between the conflict and the climax is the rising action. So we know the conflict is that the boys got lost. The climax is that Mr. Flynn found them. So everything is, everything right here is the rising action to this play. And then if we want to say, what's the falling action? Well, I guess I screwed up a bit. Hold on. Let me go back and fix it. I know you're going to yell at me like I don't know what I'm doing. Well, 9 times out of 10, I don't. So let me do this. And I'm not going to redo this again. This is going to be part of the blooper reel. Seven to 12 is the rising action. The climax is the teacher running onto the stage. Let's make that blue. This one. The teacher running onto the stage because he found him. And this could be part of it too. Is that they were found. The falling action really would be the teacher finds them, but then he gets distracted. I should have made that green. Sorry, I'm not bad at the Roy G. Biv. The teacher sees that gets, again, squirrel moment by the new exhibit. So I'm going to make, again, I'm going to draw these colors, and I'm going to make blue. I'm going to call it CL for climax. Because this is the climax of the story, the boys being found. The falling action, again, we're going to make green. We're going to call it FA for falling action. The falling action is the teacher getting distracted by the dinosaur. Then it says we just have enough time to get to class and take in the dinosaur display before lunch. So that, again, I'm going to make purple. That's the end of the story. That's how the story ends, is the whole class getting together. That I'm just going to put an R for our resolution or our denouement. Again, I know you're going to look at me, Mr. Shortak doesn't know what he's talking about, because I thought there was more to this page. So again, take and mark up the text. This is what we call annotating. Again, this is a close reading strategy. You do close reading all the time, whether you think about it or not. So now I'm going to help you, and we're going to do these questions together. We're going to use hints on this page to help you answer the question. Which choice illustrates the main problem that drives the rest of the story's events? What is the conflict in the play? Well, we kind of did that already, didn't we? We could go back up to this and say, we mark that with the CF. The conflict of this play is that the boys got separated from their class. So we're going to pick B. I'm going to make all those black. So circle B in your book. That's the conflict of the story. Which choice illustrates, or which choice shows how the play's problem is solved without focusing on the events leading up to the resolution? Which episode from the plot serves as the resolution? Again, if we go back to what we wrote, we see that this is why we do close reading. This is why we mark up the text. James and Jamal get distracted by the T-Rex and end up lost. No, that kind of looks like the conflict. James and Jamal make a plan to search for their class. James and Jamal hear noises coming from the dinosaur display. James and Jamal are found by Mr. Flynn and go to their class. Well, we know that end up being lost is part of the conflict. And then we can see that making a plan to search for their class is part of the rising action, because why are you making a plan to be the resolution? So if you get distracted and end up lost, probably finding your class should probably be the resolution to your story, huh? Always happens, like whenever you get lost. I still get worried, like if I lose my brothers or sisters sometimes. And then it says, what's the conflict in this plot? Well, we just said that earlier. The conflict is the boys getting lost. That's what drives it. Now, when it says, would an alternate resolution solve the problem? Why or why not? Well, it says, explain another way the author could have resolved the conflict in this play. Describe whether or not it would be a good resolution based on the play's events. Well, I could think of maybe a way. I could think of a couple ways. I'm going to create a big text box for that. Whoops. Again, you could even think of your own way if you wanted to. We can even talk about this as a class. You know, what's a way that we could solve this story? What's another way that we could solve this besides the way I'm writing it? So we know that the boys got lost. They got separated from their teacher. And then they found the Tyrannosaurus Rex display, and they got scared because probably walking by it, it had a motion detector. So, could we have resolved it another way? Sure. I'm thinking maybe a security guard went up to the display and confronted the boys. She asked, "Are you two Jamal and James?" They replied, scaredly. Is that a word? Probably not. They replied sheepishly, "Yes." Well, the security guard stated, "Your teacher and classmates are looking for you." The security guard united the boys back with their class at the space exhibit. Now, I kind of wrote another way. Now, could we describe whether or not that would be a good resolution based on the play's plot? I would say it would be an okay resolution to me. And if I use two specific examples to support my response, if I didn't even like what I created, I really didn't like what I created. The teacher didn't find the T-Rex exhibit and have a, I can't spell exhibit, I don't care, I'll go back. I can't spell squirrel either. Nope, that's not how you spell squirrel. Don't judge me. Just because I'm a language arts teacher doesn't mean I can spell every word. Also, then the class didn't get to hear about how the T-Rex scared the boys. So, that's how we could end this story. Again, that's a way that, again, that we can create a different resolution. And again, we can do what we've learned in the previous chapters of being able to cite evidence and details to give our opinion, like we did with Bridge Terabithia, like we will do with Where the Red Fern Grows. Okay, again, you guys just use this as an example to help you. Tomorrow, we're going to do the next story on page 58, which I don't know right now because I don't have my book in front of me. I'm horrible. Don't hate me. I will read the passage to you, and then we're going to do the 4 comprehension questions as a quiz on Schoolology, which I will gladly help you with. As always, if you have any questions, Pirates, please unmute yourself or message me on Schoolology. Thank you very much, and have a super sparkly day.